There's a lot of people that really like the 80s, the music, and especially the movies. Oh, they were such classics. Until they go back to something like Revenge of the Nerds and kind of realize that it's a bit racist and crude and even sexist. And I lived through the 80s. I love the music. I love a lot of the shows and the cartoons. And I love synthwave, but listening to it now, that's not all the music that happened in the 80s. It's more of a distillation of what people think the 80s sound like when they didn't live through the 80s. It kind of leads us into this question. What are you absolutely sick of being romanticized? Story 1. Oh my gosh, I like my desk to be super neat and I like my house to be clean, so I must have OCD, you know? No, that is not OCD. OCD is not a fun thing to have. It is not defined as person who likes to clean, nor is having OCD productive in that matter. A person with OCD suffers from thoughts they do not want to have. Sufferers of this disorder try to fight the thoughts away, but since you can't control your thoughts, the thoughts remain. This leads to compulsive behaviors in order to satisfy the obsession. An OCD person may have thoughts about hurting people in violent or grotesque ways. They obsess about it. They can't stop thinking about it. Then they start to wonder, am I at risk of being violent? Could I really do something terrible to people? What if I lose control? Is this how insanity starts? What if I just watch violent horror movies? Oh my God, I enjoyed that. Holy hell, I'm a bad person. Oh my God, I have to take drastic measures to make sure I never, ever hurt anyone. Then they proceed to take measures that severely limit the quality of life, even though they were never going to cause harm to anyone in the first place. But while this is happening, the person is screaming at themselves from the inside going, you know you're not violent. What are you even worried about? Stop thinking about this stuff. You're fine. Stop it. OCD does not mean I like things to be clean. That is a preference for things to be clean. Maybe even more so than some other people. And it makes you a totally normal person. An OCD person who cleans does not want to clean. They very desperately wish to stop thinking about germs. They wish to end all thoughts about cross-contamination. They wish they were just normal people who didn't feel the need to clean for hours of the day. But they can't stop thinking about cleaning. I don't want to clean anymore, but if I don't, something awful is going to happen and my whole life, career, and marriage will be derailed. They have anxiety about it. They have panic attacks over it. I work a sales job. I check my sales numbers at least 50 times a day. If I don't, I feel like I've lost sales and I'm not getting my commission. I do this constantly. I've actually left work, made a U-turn, had security open up my office after hours so I could check my sales numbers, even though I already knew what they were. I've obsessed over stupid things like how many hours of sleep I got last night. Tee-hee, I'm so OCD. OCD is not fun, dude. It's hell. Stop romanticizing a disorder that you do not have nor do you understand. I think this comes from how people with disorders are portrayed in TV and movies. Since those things are life with the boring parts cut out, they're usually either portrayed as funny or quirky or not that big of a deal. It's almost like doing this by labeling yourself with some kind of condition sort of denies you the ability to have confidence in your own personality. It's like you blame your negative parts on something you probably don't think you can control. It's kind of cheating yourself out of being true to yourself. Story 2. Women being treated like princesses. Now, not to be confused with disliking or hating women. My partner is a hero, but my poor brother waits on his girl hand and foot, and she appreciates none of it. She gets stroppy as hell if he asks her to lift a finger. All the while, she reads stupid romance and watches these awful love movies, and genuinely gets upset if he hasn't changed overnight to become her new type of man. She gets so wounded if he does something on his own, but if they go out together, Nobody gets to talk to him because he's too busy getting more ice or a different color straw or sending her food back for her. She justifies her behavior with examples of fictional men doing ridiculous things for love. Absolutely drives me demented. A sheer sense of entitlement because she thinks all girls should be treated like a movie star on the red carpet. Let us all take a moment of silence for this brother. Can we have a moment of loud group appeal to the brother to leave her and try to move on with his life immediately after the moment of silence? It was kind of like this with my ex. She needed to be with me constantly. She did have other friends, but whenever I wasn't with her and them, she would complain about them. She didn't care about what I wanted, only what she needed. If I went out and didn't text her like every 30 minutes, she would get ticked. If I wanted some peace and quiet and play some games with my friends, then I apparently didn't love her anymore. It felt like psychological torture as she would send me WhatsApp voice recordings of her crying because I hated her. And on our 1-year anniversary, I got her one of those teddy bears that holds hearts with text on them. She called me up ticked because this better not be the only thing you're getting me for my anniversary. The next day, I sent her home, called her up when she got home, and told her I was breaking up with her. Ran out of the house and went to my best friend's birthday party, which she forbade me to go to the day before because there will probably be other women there. But as I was making my way there, she called me, said that she was going to unalive herself and screaming on the phone. So I just said, no, please don't. Think about your family before you do that. Then she hung up, and I think she expected me to call back, but I just blocked her number. I learned my lesson after that. Not that I will use that lesson for a while, as my self-esteem is at an all-time low, but at least I learned something. Rom-coms are really good movies to relax with, but they are entirely unrealistic quite a lot of times. If a man did all the things men do in movies to get the girl's attention, like visiting them at their work, continually calling them, playing music outside their house, being a general annoyance, they'd be arrested on stalker or creeper charges. It didn't occur to me that there are women that actually really buy into that whole thing and expect to be treated that way. It's important to value women, but it's also important to value yourself. Story 3. Oppression. I'm in my early 20s, and I see a lot of people claiming to be oppressed in my age group. It really devalues actual struggles when a young guy with a part-time job that constantly parties claims to be oppressed and won't take responsibility for the fact that their life is in shambles. An old high school friend is this entirely. Rich dad who is the CEO of a national temp agency. She grew up in a 3-story mansion with a pool and numerous pets. New cell phone every year, Gucci wallet, corporate boxes for sports games and concerts, etc., etc. She's also white, young, able-bodied, and was raised Catholic. Then, high school ended. It didn't take long for her to come out as genderqueer. She left home and moved into a flat full of alternative, quirky, gender-fluid people. She converted to eclectic Wicca and is self-diagnosed bipolar, schizophrenic, multiple personalities, and gender dysphoria. She also says she has depression, anxiety, autism, high functioning of course, selective mutism, despite never shutting up, OCD, sociopathy, borderline personality disorder, EDNOS, and a heart condition. She talks a lot online about spoon theory and not having enough spoons to get through the day. She has never had a job. She used to apply to places, but now gets a disability benefit from the government. And of course, she's oppressed. She talks about her Irish heritage and how even now people still discriminate against the Irish. She is naturally discriminated against for her religious beliefs, her gender identity, her piercings, her weight. She was slim in high school, but a diet of deep-fried frozen things, toast and pizza will cause any waistline to expand. Her one teeny wrist tattoo, her mental and physical disabilities, and her financial status, i.e., everything she has either chosen to become or has been able to fix, but hasn't. She complains that she wants to go to university but can't because of discrimination. She failed high school. She doesn't even have a driver's license. Her life sucks, and of course it's all the fault of cis-white capitalists. In her defense, though, she has got to have a mental illness. No sane person could put all that hogwash off sincerely. Everyone suffers. It's how we react to our suffering. Again, it goes back to that idea of taking something that you probably would be able to fix and blaming it on some sort of condition that you think is beyond your control. Everything that was mentioned in this story, there is someone that actually suffers from it. And I use that word, suffer, because they do. Just saying you do doesn't qualify you. I wonder how this person got a disability if she was self-diagnosed for all these things. Story 4. Anorexia. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't look like a frail, dainty teen girl who skips breakfast and is adored by everyone because she's so pretty and perfect. It's not glamorous or beautiful. It's being in pain for hours because you can literally feel your stomach cannibalizing itself. It's passing out because you haven't eaten in 72 hours. It's eating 6,000 calories all at one time and then crying for 3 hours because of the unbelievable guilt. It's the hair loss and broken fingernails and dark circles around your eyes and visible veins and pale skin with blotchy red patches. It's never feeling like enough while always feeling like too much. I'd ask you to tell me more, but I'm scared my empathy would rip me apart. Could you tell me how else it affects you? I'm not the original person, but I've been in an inpatient facility for 4 months so far because of my anorexia. At the height of my disorder, I was going on hour-long walks about 3 to 4 times a day. Even if I was exhausted, it was like something in my body was forcing my legs to keep moving. If I sat down, I felt restless and guilty, like I wasn't moving enough. I'd end up doing laps for hours around my house and upstairs where customers couldn't see me at work. I would only allow myself to eat the same thing at the same time every day. No flexibility. My body was always sore, and I was constantly cold, even in 30 degrees Celsius heat. If I sat down, my coccyx bone would dig into the ground or chair, and it would be painful. If I shifted, my spine would dig into the back of the chair, causing me pain. I was starting to lose a lot of hair, and I was very pale. My nails would constantly go blue from the cold. I'd have periods of being shaky and nauseous from not eating, and almost fainting because I couldn't allow myself anything because the food wasn't allowed for another few hours, etc. Story 5. Cheating. All those jokes about side pieces and stuff. Like, no, it's an absolutely awful thing to do to someone. Also, being a complete peenhead for the sake of being a peenhead, as it's viewed as badass to some. I completely loathe all the pop songs you hear about, "Don't tell your boyfriend that we totally smashed" and stuff. Like, you know your audience is mostly kids, right? Why the hell would you want to normalize cheating? I hope this trend wears off someday. My girlfriend has had serious trust issues due to earlier boyfriends who cheated, lied, or betrayed her. So now I feel like I have to prove myself all the time. And the smallest things can create trust issues, even though I would never treat her that way. I had this issue with an ex. I left my email open on my computer and didn't lock it. Sometimes I'd ask her to check my phone while I was in the shower. I had nothing to hide. It seemed to put her at ease. Am I weird for not wanting to let this happen? It's not like I have anything to hide, really, and I'll tell her all she'd like to know, but I just don't like people snooping through messages and pictures and so on, no matter if there's anything at all. Agreed. I don't hide anything from my significant other, but I have separate friendships where I discuss different things with different people. I share almost everything with my partner, but I may choose to share it in a different way than I would with my best friend. Story 6. Gang culture. It's embarrassing to see teenagers who live in rich suburbs trying to be hood. I went to high school in one of the richest school districts in my state. One year, I had gym class with this white guy who was trying so hard to be gangsta. Got held back a year for never doing work, wore the big baggy t-shirts and those flat-brim hats you see in music videos. Then he got both his ears pierced and started wearing huge stud earrings. They got super infected and he had to go on antibiotics. I went to school with this rich kid that was fairly rich, yet he'd always complain about him having to hustle. The reason he had to hustle is because his parents made him start buying his own food and paying for his own stuff. Kind of a jerk move to do that to someone who isn't 18, right? Nah, not really. The only reason he had to do that was because he had been caught multiple times selling weed. So his parents got tired of it and made him buy his own stuff. The same kid who rode around in a BMW and had a Rolex loved to complain about how hard he had it. Oh yeah, and he'd always talk about how he could sell 80s yuppie powder if he wanted to. Like, come on now, you sell weed. Chill out. Wouldn't cutting him off virtually guarantee that he'd continue selling substances so that he could eat? I mean, he sounds like a piece of work, but that's some terrible parenting. The last commenter makes a good point. Maybe they should have told him he had to get a real job. He may have feelings of being oppressed and thinking he has to pay for everything and he's got it so hard. But I don't think he has the perspective. I don't think he's hit rock bottom yet. Hopefully that doesn't mean he has to be homeless for him to realize how good he has it. Story 7. The Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship. Ever since Suicide Squad, there have been people who probably never heard of Harley Quinn before sharing pictures of them both with some text over the top saying some edgy stuff about forbidden love. The Joker is abusive and manipulative to Harley Quinn. He doesn't care about her and uses her obsession with him to make her do whatever he wants. There's nothing romantic about it, even in a dark or twisted way. And the funny thing is, for its faults, Suicide Squad doesn't even paint their relationship as any better than it is, so it's ridiculous that so many people don't understand. I think a lot of people just saw easy couples' Halloween costumes and went from there. But yeah, it's messed up. Their relationship is interesting, but not an ideal in any means. Halloween costumes is fine because they're still a famous fictional pairing, so it makes sense. It's the people on social media who seem to think they're a poster couple for love. Unconventional love that defies the odds. Story 8. Bonnie and Clyde. Now, I'm not just talking about the abusive Harley Joker trope of this, though it is a major one. Bonnie and Clyde were awful criminals that unalived innocent people. It's not like these two dumb people actually accumulated wealth. There was no class or charm to their thievery. They stole from poor people and unalived those that dare protect their property. They had their heads so far up their butts that they published a poem about how awesome they are. The damn movie tried to paint them as hot and sympathetic, but it only made my hate for them grow. You know how they died? They got ambushed in their car and gunned down. What was left of their heads looked like Swiss cheese. Yeah, that's a life to live, getting gunned down in your 20s and 30s while conveniently getting over erectile dysfunction. Fantastic. Anyone that identifies Bonnie and Clyde in a positive light are instantly seen as dumb people by me. Story 9. Living in poverty, perishing of disease, being a starving artist. Anyone else just really hate rent? But how do you measure your hatred? In daylights? In sunsets? In midnights? Or cups of coffee? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. They made a joke about that in the show Flight of the Conchords. So you guys are like starving artists? Yeah, it sounds cool, but in real life it's actually quite depressing. Nope. Life in New York City was very different back when AIDS was so terrifying that people believed that you could get it from breathing the same air as an infected person. And contracting AIDS was a death sentence. If you examine the characters in Rent the same way that you would examine how people would react if the end of the world was announced, but a select few got to just watch their friends perish painfully versus perishing themselves, then their behavior makes a lot more sense. I think with the workforce and the way the economy is now, you don't have to be an artist to be starving. There are starving construction workers. There are starving customer service people. There are probably even starving doctors. At the start of your career, you're going to have to fight to get some credibility and experience. Doesn't matter what you do.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 10. Mental illness. Be proud. Don't shy away from talking about it. I sure as hell don't. But when a guy told me that he loved that I had depression because it meant he would get to take care of me, I was like, curse this. Says more about his mental situation than yours. That's pretty absolutely disturbing. I hate people that seem to use it as leverage and everything. Oh, I suffered once, so you can't criticize me. Oh, take off. We all have issues. I just broke up with my boyfriend, and it really boiled down to that. He has depression, so therefore I wasn't allowed to get upset with him for blatantly ignoring my emotions. If I did, I was abusive, and he would shut down completely unless I apologized. I finally realized that he's actually manipulative as hell, and it's not his depression's fault. He's just a jerkwad. Story 11. I know I'm going to get hell for this, but as someone who is actually transgender, I hate people who pretend to be trans because some people think it sounds cool and trendy. I hate being trans. I don't want to be trans, but my brain and my body do not agree. If I had the decision of being cis, I would jump on that stuff in a heartbeat. It's not fun. It's not cute. It's not cool. It's terrifying. Literal physical disgust at your own body parts. It's dangerous. It's expensive. It can go on and on. People who pretend can just dip out whenever things get scary or dangerous. But those of us who aren't can't just do that. And all the hogwash that has been going on lately has made it harder for me and others who are serious about getting the help we need. Story 12. Eating disorders. There is nothing glamorous about them. They are absolutely miserable. If I see one more person on the internet talk about how they want to be small and dainty, so they're trying anorexia or they wish they were anorexic, I'm gonna stab someone. You want an eating disorder? By all means, shrew, take mine. Nurses in the ER when I was still suffering. I wish I could have an eating disorder for a little while. Maybe then I could lose this gut. I wish I had that kind of self-control. I think I have the opposite kind of eating disorder. I eat too much. I'm like, dude, I'm here because I'm having complications from my eating disorder. My potassium is low, and restricting it is giving me debilitating migraines. Tell me again how freaking great an idea it would be to have an eating disorder. And again, we keep going back to things that are not in your control versus things that we choose to say are not in our control in order to blame something that we could fix ourselves. You want to lose that gut? Start exercising. You wish you had that kind of self-control? Make up a chart and start following it to the letter. It's not that hard once you get started. Story 13. Not taking your paid vacation time, working more hours than you're paid to work, and not taking breaks at work. These are all your right to exercise without punishment. All you're saying is you're working harder for a company than they're working for you. It also creates standards for the other employees and expectations that everyone should throw away their lives for their jobs. This stuff drives me nuts. Even more so the people who refuse to take sick days. I've had a manager, super awful shrew of a manager, horrible woman, tell me to my face as her nose was beet red from blowing it so many times that she hasn't needed a sick day in 20 years. This is nothing to brag about. You're sick. Get the hell out of here. Story 14. Lack of sleep. Why do people think it's so cool to not sleep at night? When I can't sleep at night, I want to cry. Insomnia is torture. Anyone who thinks not sleeping is cool is an idiot. I've wanted to rip my hair out when I couldn't sleep on a few occasions. I can't imagine what it's like to be unable to sleep every day. Reminds me of a line from Soul Music by Terry Pratchett. There are the people of the day and the creatures of the night. And it's important to remember that the creatures of the night aren't simply the people of the day staying up late because they think it makes them cool and interesting. It takes more than heavy mascara and a pale complexion to cross the divide. Story 15. Depression, self-harm, eating disorders, abusive relationships. Netflix unfortunately just saw your post and came up with 4 new series ideas. To the Bone was meh. Same with autism. It's like autistic characters are only allowed on TV if it also makes them a genius. They never show their real struggles, except not looking people in the face and talking in a weird rhythm that I've never heard in real life. Atypical does a great job at that. The main character has mild autism. He's not a genius. He's fairly smart, but it shows his struggles with social interaction. It shows the triggers for him to have an episode. You'll get in his head more so and see that he takes most things literally. I've liked Atypical. I always thought that was a good show. And I agree, he's just a normal character. He just happens to have autism. I'll admit I like that series Extraordinary Attorney Woo. Unfortunately, it does kind of portray the disability turning the person into a genius. Story 16. Blacking out from alcohol. Very romanticized on college campuses, and it's not safe for yourself or for others around you. I've seen blacked out people hurt themselves and hurt others and damage lots of property. I did a lot of drinking in college. I didn't black out for the first time until I was around 26. It was the scariest stuff that had ever happened to me. I always wonder if I was drugged because I don't remember drinking more than the usual, but I have no idea how I got home. I left the club without my friends. I guess I got a cab back or something. To me, there was nothing funny about it. Story 17. The Confederacy. I've always found it peculiar how people can condemn Nazi Germany and be A-OK with celebrating the Confederacy. I'll get downvoted for this, but it's probably because their ancestors were part of the Confederates, and they don't like admitting that. So instead, they get defensive. What ticks me off with those people is that some of them will say stuff like, "Black people are always complaining, but they weren't slaves, and their grandparents weren't slaves either, so what's the problem?" Yet they'll talk about how they have a connection to their ancestors during the Civil War, and that's why they have Confederate items. Story 18. Gangs. Man, as a Mexican, I hate this the most. Curse every person who thinks it's cool to look up to El Chapo. Like seriously, shut the hell up. You watched Narcos and now you think substance cartels are hardcore? Yeah, okay, go live in a poor Mexican town run by these idiots and tell me how cool they are. Agreed. Absolutely nothing cool about the thug life. They all expire young. It isn't cool. It's tragic. There is nothing romantic about it, and most people in those situations aren't even very romantic and can be abusive due to the lack of moral upbringing. Story 19. Severus Snape. He's a creepy neckbeard who is ready to have his master unalive the husband and son of the woman he loved and then bullied an entire generation of kids using his power as a teacher just because he was a nerdy little boy who was bullied as a student. He saved his worst for the boys he helped orphan. Harry and Neville. Always my butt. Preach, my brother. James Potter was a bully and a jerk, but he stopped and actively improved himself in the name of love. Severus joined a terrorist organization in the name of love. Story 20. The whole idea of hustle, 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 80-hour work weeks and 5 side projects. Yep, I work in the trade industry. People always going on about how hard they can work, how they don't mind at all lifting and lugging all day every day. You do realize you're literally destroying your body. I work in IT. I brag about how little I work. Passive income for those people is also just another side gig in addition to a day job. Shrew, passive income means not doing anything and still collecting money off it, like stocks. Story 21. Famous people who did awful things and treated people around them like garbage because they were putting everything into their craft. Curse that noise. You can say, Jared Leto, "You have been added to the Anal Beads mailing list. Unsubscribe." If older, especially if they're a writer or actor, they're treated with awe as if reaching 68 or 70 is some sort of achievement these days, and called a character or a curmudgeon, which basically just means despicable and ignorant old runt. Story 22. Taking justice into your own hands and personal vendettas. Bad stuff happens when you do that. Lawyer here. Been defending far too many guys who did the right thing. Fathers beating their daughter's allegedly abusive boyfriend. Guys who have beaten up their ex's new guy. Even women who assaulted the alleged side piece. Trust me, we have laws for abusive boyfriends. Adultery is not punitive, and being a main piece is not a societal status that needs to be protected. Tell that to Batman. Story 23. The restaurant industry. So many people in the industry act like passion is more important than pay, health insurance, or obeying labor laws. But that's an idea the owners encourage, and the new kids eat up. You're expected to work hard, be passionate, and not give a care about third-degree burns, so a customer can get their appetizer on time just to make close to minimum wage and not receive breaks. It's hogwash, and it's why most people either start their own place or leave the industry. Story 24. When a boy pursues a girl even after she says no and makes it clear that she's not interested in the attention. He gets admired for being persistent when that behavior is really just creepy and frustrating. Oh God, it's worse in real life when it's a guy in a club and eventually after about 50 no's and go-aways, you say, "Take off." And they say, "Whoa, calm down, shrew." I swear, I go into 100% rage mode. Story 25. Being a jerkwad. I will never understand why people take pride in being an awful person. They think it's being tough. Certain fictional characters such as Rick Sanchez, Eric Cartman, and Archer are jerkwads but adored. I think half the point of Archer and Rick is that they ruin their own lives and the lives of those around them by being raging jerkwads. Cartman generally gets away with it. Story 26. When our plucky, not-so-well-off goofball idiot protagonist wants a lady who's already in a stable, supportive relationship with a guy who's quite well off, successful in his career, and has nothing really wrong with him. Protagonist constantly hounds and pursues her, hoping to win her heart and drive her away from the guy she's with, who never did anything to deserve this filth. It's not romantic. It's stalking. Story 27. Gluten allergies. No joke. One of my best friends has celiac disease. It sucks. He basically has to choose where we all eat for dinner if we all eat out. Options are limited and not cheap. We can't all grab a burger at HJ because one of us can only order a milkshake. That's just mean. He can't even eat low gluten or just order fries or something because everything is cooked in the same deep fryer. Story 28. Sick people. That movie The Fault in Their Stars came out. Suddenly, healthy teens are dressing up with fake oxygen tanks, carrying them through school. It sucks to be on oxygen. Over time, it leaves dents in your skin. The constant rubbing causes skin tags and other ugliness. Everybody who's in a hospital bed is wearing oxygen. That's just not true. Story 29. Going out. For the longest time, I actually thought it was supposed to be like the movies, where you have intimacy with 3 different people, dance like a pro, have award-winning dialogue, and get in a fight. In actuality, it's meeting the same 3 to 5 dummies and going to the same bar to waste $50+ doing the same stuff you'd be doing at home. Story 30. Abusive relationships. Twilight, 50 Shades, Joker Harley. They're all 100% abusive relationships, yet people seem to fawn over them like a modern-day Romeo and Juliet, which is also something that needs to stop getting romanticized. Hell, it was a weekend fling that unalived 6 people, including the 2 involved. Story 31. Big romantic gestures in public proposals. You mean I shouldn't write a musical starring all my friends where I make a self-insert character to appear at the end and sing my proposal? Afterwards, you and your beloved waitress can enjoy some prime milk steaks. Story 32. The Mafia. Any organized crime, really. They steal billions of dollars from the economy and leave thousands unalive and have people sold into slavery. But let's pretend they're a bunch of cool anti-establishment ruffians. Makes me sick how people admire and respect them. Story 33. The 1920s to the 1950s. Yeah, milkshakes are nice, but what about World War II, riots, poverty, corruption, genocide, racism, and on and on? But flappers were cool, right? In the 1950s, more adults thought they would unalive a thermonuclear war than old age. Story 34. Pirates. They did messed up things mostly to defenseless people. As much as I love learning about history, all that stuff gets over-romanticized. Let's face it, the past was awful for most people, even for famous historical figures. Story 35. Poverty. TV show characters who are allegedly poor don't seem to actually be poor at all, but the characters seem to think they are. Maybe they think everyone has trust funds and they don't mention that part. Girls, friends, etc. Story 36. New York City. It's cool, but in the end it's just a place where people live. It's not a utopia in the slightest. Story 37. 50 Shades of Grey.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.